Hi, it's been a while. I apologize. I have been meaning to post something for quite a while, but I've been so busy with work that I haven't been able to keep up with YouTube, and I've got, piles of months, weeks of YouTube videos just to watch. But while I was riding home from school this evening, I teach a night class on Thursdays. I was inspired. I don't know, this old story flashed into my head, so I thought, oh, I can probably just simply record that quickly and send that off. We'll see. So this is a story that about a strange encounter in the Art Institute of Chicago, one of the major museums in the United States, and I was visiting it during it was one of my visits during my first year in graduate school in Chicago, and I was studying art history, and so I wanted to when I could go down to the museum to take a look around. So one day I was there, and I was wandering around the museum, and I happened to, after lunch, walk over to part of the modern section of the museum, and I was looking at an interesting piece. Well, maybe I didn't think it was quite so interesting. I just happened to be going by, and I stopped and I looked at it. Um, no, not too large. Is mounted on the wall, maybe about 3 feet across, of acrylic resin, sort of an oblong geometric shape, and it had geometric colors in it. And I was standing in front of this piece, and I heard a voice behind me, and it said to me, "What do you make of that?" And I turned around, and where there was an elderly gentleman, well dressed. He had a suit coat, well, a sports coat, and a tie, and a white shirt, gray hair, glasses, and decent looking elderly gentleman, perhaps retired. And me being the naive person that I was and still am, oh, and wanted to be friendly. Um, so I just started talking to him about what I thought about the piece. And I must have said something clever because he said to me, "Oh, that's very clever. Did you make that up yourself?" Now, I'm the sort of person, that sort of thing. I'm sure I wasn't insulted by that. Did you make that up yourself? And this is the beginning of this is my first year in graduate school, and I look kind of, well, I probably look like I was 17 or 18 at that time. Um, so no, I said yes, I did, and I study art history and blah blah blah. And so we chatted. He had a few more questions, and we chatted for a couple of minutes in front of the piece, and then he asked me my name, and I gave him my first name. I didn't give him my last name, but I gave him my first name, and he said, "Oh, well, that's curious. We have the same first name." And in order to prove it, he pulled out his wallet and he pulled out his driver's license, and he showed me his driver's license. Okay, fine, I didn't think anything of it at the time anyway. So he asked me then if I had eaten lunch. And yes, indeed, I had eaten lunch. Then, since I had eaten lunch, would I be interested in joining him for a cup of coffee at the museum cafeteria or cafe? And I said, sure, because he had introduced himself to me as a collector. And me being, graduate student, very eager and also generally friendly, said, sure, I thought this would be an opportunity to meet somebody impromptu in a museum, and he's a collector. This could be interesting. So we went to the back of the museum, to the cafe, and we sat down. I honestly I don't remember actually having any coffee or anything. We were just sitting there, chatting, making small talk. And, he's asking me about my studies and this sort of thing, and I would ask him about his collection. But curiously, he seemed not inclined to talk about his collection. At one point in our conversation, he asked me whether my studies kept me very busy. And I answered, yes, indeed, my studies did keep me very busy. And that was the truth. And then he said something very strange. He said to me, oh, well, and this is the way he put it. I have one in English literature who also says he's very busy. Now, at that point, the light bulb went on in this naive person's head. Boom, the light bulb goes on. I thought, oh, that's what he collects. Because he hadn't said anything about collecting art. So I thought, well, this is awkward, very awkward. What shall I do? Or how is this going to, I mean, my goodness, what's going to happen next? And then at that point, fortunately for me, he said he had to excuse himself because he had another business appointment. And then I was very relieved. So he takes out a business card and he jots down a phone number on it. And he says, "This is my card and I've written down my home number. Please be sure to call me." And I said, "Well, it would be great to see your collection." He says, "Please call me just so that I can hear your voice." Awkward, seriously awkward. I looked around and I happened to notice that there are a whole bunch of people looking at us. And I thought, wow, they all know what's going on. And it took me forever to figure out what's going on. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I was trying to make sort of false assurances that I sure would call him so that I could visit him in Cicero, where he lived, and see his collection. But of course, he didn't want to talk about his collection. He just basically wanted assurances that I would call him, just so that he could hear my voice. And he shook my hand, and he wouldn't let go of it. So he's shaking my hand, he won't let go of it. And I'm looking around, and I see people are really looking at us intently. And so I'm shaking his hand, and I'm sort of nodding and saying, mumbling assurances that, sure, I'll call him. And I'm thinking, how long is he going to shake my hand? But then finally he let go, and he excused himself, and he went off. And I think he went to the exit. And at that point, I was sort of stunned. I looked around, people are still looking at me. And then I walked away, mostly just relieved and kind of puzzled by the whole affair. And I went off into the museum, and I went over to, I wandered over to the medieval art galleries. Medieval art. What's medieval art? Well, the Middle Ages in Europe. And what are you going to have? You're going to have religious art, lots of religious art. Crucifixes, images of the Virgin Mary, paintings of the Virgin Mary, the Holy Mother and Child, the Virgin Mary and Child, crucified Christs, architectural ornaments with religious images on them. So I am starting to return to my own self. As you can see, I wasn't bothered. Wasn't upset by the encounter or anything. It just was like, whew, weird. And so I'm looking at all this medieval religious art, and I hear a voice from behind me. A different voice, a younger voice. And I turn around, and it's this young guy, probably about my age. And I remember, maybe I'm misremembering, but I remember black leather jacket and well-kept hair. And I looked at him, and he said to me, "Isn't it wonderful what all of this art, this beautiful art, teaches us about our Lord Jesus Christ?" I don't remember saying anything. I just remember looking at him, kind of wide-eyed, and then what I remember is just that, and then turning around and making a beeline for French Impressionism and Monet and Cézanne, something modern, sort of early modern and secular. So I went there and I thought, wow, what a weird afternoon in the museum. So the next day I told friends about this at lunch, and then these friends actually did see, in fact, one of my friends, actually a Japanese friend, actually had an encounter with this guy that I encountered, the older guy. And because he remembered my story, but he didn't hang around. He just basically said, "Oh, thank you," and took off. And he did have a chance to point this elderly gentleman out on other occasions in the museum, and so they would see him. So he appeared periodically in the museum, I guess collecting. But the sad part about it is I think he was just lonely. So, all right, more later. Thanks. Bye.